You're watching Oilers Nation Everyday with Tyler Yaremchuk. Your one-stop shop for all things Oilers.
Despite being one win away from the Stanley Cup, the Edmonton Oilers now need a new general manager. Let's get into it with the lead. Welcome into Oilers Nation Everyday and to the Sports Closet Studio, which right now is in the building right here in Edmonton, but you can go to Sherwood Park Mall, St. Albert Mall, and Kingsway Mall to find Sports Closet nearest to you.
Represents. What a lead. That is, reality hits you fast, man.
Yeah, it really does. It's kind of crazy to think that the season ended, Monday night, and so much has happened already with the Oilers. And we kind of all expected it to go this way, like Ken Holland's contract was coming up, and obviously the draft is tomorrow. Free agency starts on Monday. But it is kind of crazy to think that now the Edmonton Oilers are on the hunt for a new general manager. There hasn't been a lot of indication where they could maybe be looking. This just, a limited time to get through everything. But Ken Holland and the Edmonton Oilers departed this morning after 5 years with the Oilers. And yeah, Aaron, what was your initial thoughts on that? Tyler will be with us very soon as well, by the way. He's just trying to get set up down there in Vegas.
We got a lot going on
down there. And it's also 1 billion degrees, while here it's pouring with rain.
Yeah, but you should see his vacation shirt he's got on. I pointed out, Ty's looking very good tonight. Yeah, you knew the Ken Holland news was coming. I don't think of it. I think maybe part of Tyler's negativity yesterday towards Holland. I get it.
Me too.
I'm giving it a B. I think I'm giving it a straight up B, no minus, no plus. I mean, you look at that record. We had them 1-1 away from the Stanley Cup Finals. So we built a team that was in position to get there and did get there. The guys on the ice maybe just needed a bounce or two. Ken Holland, I will look back on it fondly, I think, mostly. There wasn't much conviction I just said that with, but
I think it was Jonathan Willis who tweeted it this morning that Ken Holland is probably the best general manager the Oilers have had since Kevin Lowe.
Yeah.
And I mean, he also prefaced in that tweet too, like the bar isn't exactly high, but it is what it is. Do we have Tyler? My laptop shut off, so I haven't been able to see what's
going on. Let's bring him in, baby.
There he is. Welcome, Tyler. Welcome to your show.
Hey, guys. Thanks for holding down the fort there for a couple of minutes while we got set up here. But everyone in the YouTube, welcome into the show. You said it's raining in Edmonton today?
It is absolutely pouring. I also woke up with a bit of a flat tire today. My pressure in my tire was 8.
That's really not good.
Needed it to be a 32. So far from ideal.
Is it still at 8 outside?
No, I pumped it up.
Okay, good.
I wouldn't have been able to get here otherwise. But yes, pouring with rain. What are you at today? 47 degrees?
Honestly, man, that's what it feels like. And the wind is blowing, and it's 39 right now in Vegas. But with the wind, it just feels like someone's standing right next to me with the world's biggest blow dryer and just blowing hot air onto me. I got a new vacation shirt, though. I didn't do the laundry route. I went to the mall yesterday, and I picked up a couple of fresh tops, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling loose. It's very breathable.
You're looking great. And while you were on the pre-show when we were kind of talking there, Holiday by Madonna was playing downstairs. Yep. It just felt perfect with your new shirt.
Yeah, the vibe matches up. Anyways, we got a loaded show. Again, we're going to be live for about the next hour here on Oilers Nation. Of course, like goal, 200. If we hit 200 today, 200 tomorrow, I'm jumping in the pool to end the week. And honestly, I did it at first as like I don't want to have to do that. But now it's so hot that I'm like, I really need the chat to come through for me. I'm dying to jump in the pool behind me. But anyways, Frank Seravalli is going to swing by, I think, in a couple of minutes here. We're going to chat with him. He just tried to call me. I'm not sure why. But anyways, Frank should be by. And then at 12:40, we're going to be joined by Matt Larkin. So with Frank, we're going to kind of take it more of like a what are the Oilers going to do over the next 7 days approach. And then with Larkin, we're going to do like kind of more of an around the NHL sort of approach to things. So there's a lot going on today. But Liam, you kicked off the show talking about Ken Holland. In fact, the Oilers now need a new general manager. And I did get a bit of a kick out of, people acting like this is some sort of breaking news. Like, Liam, we've been talking on our show for like 14 months about how Ken Holland was not a dead man walking, but he wasn't sticking around. We knew this. So when there's all these reports like breaking, I'm hearing this. Yeah, man, we've known this for a year. It's not surprising.
I think, yes, of course, like what you said is all true. But for me, the moment that made it so clear and obvious that Ken Holland was basically no longer going to be the general manager, or maybe even wasn't, was when they did the Chris Knobloch press conference, and he just didn't really say anything. Every time he had to open his mouth, it seemed like he had to look at Jeff Jackson for permission to talk, and it was incredibly uncomfortable for a guy that, to his credit, has had a fantastic career. However many Stanley Cups he won, with or without the cap, whatever it is, he still won. And from that moment on, it was just like, I don't think this guy's in charge anymore. He is not making the calls. And then today, for the Oilers to decide that Jeff Jackson is the acting general manager until further notice also gives you the indication he's pretty much been making the calls the entire time too.
I think that's very apparent. Again, yes, the Knobloch hiring, that was so very clearly a Jeff Jackson hiring. They have a history together. That's his boy. It makes sense. And it does, I think, again, we knew it and we kind of loosely speculated on it throughout the year, but nothing was happening without Jeff Jackson's permission in this whole thing. So yeah, I think that is obvious. But today it's our Sherwood Ford Giant question, brought to you by our friends at Sherwood Ford the Giant and their fantastic service department, whether it's the valet service, whether it's their mobile service van, whether it's the countless bays they have out at the dealership. Plenty of ways for them to get you back out on the road safely and efficiently. Also, shout out to our friends at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine, your one-stop shop for everything you need to get ready for the summer. Fishing rods, water sports, accessories, e-bikes, they got it all at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. Love this partnership, Sherwood Power Sports and Marine and Sherwood Ford the Giant. And you know, the partnership between the Edmonton Oilers and Ken Holland comes to a close after 5 years. Like, that is a significant run and a significant amount of time that he was in charge of this Oilers team and tasked with taking them to the next level. They weren't a playoff team when he took over. And he said, I remember back in his opening press conference, he said, I'm going to try make this a playoff team again. He said, that's step one, and you build onward and upward from there. And to his credit, he executed that plan. He never at any point came in and said, I'm going to win a Stanley Cup in year 2. I'm going to have this team being a cup contender in year 2. He said it's going to be a build, and we recognize that process, right? So to an extent, maybe I shouldn't have been as hard on him as I was yesterday, and maybe it was more built out of a frustration with the organization as a whole, but there were good and bad moves. Again, fully recognizing that. They had good runs, went to a Western Conference final, lost to the Cup champ 3 years in a row. Like, that is, you know, not to be participation trophy, but that's something to hang your hat on. Anyways, just continuing along with that, Liam, our Sherwood Ford Giant question for today, we're each going to give our 3 best and 3 worst moves of the Ken Holland era. So let's dig into it. What do you want to start with, best or worst?
Let's start with worst. And I think one thing to preface when we do this, we did our best to cover as much ground as we could. And I think we can all agree the moves we had in there are top 5 moves at worst, good or bad.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, sorry, I totally missed that. I was trying to figure out Frank. Do you want to start with best or worst?
Let's start with worst.
Okay, let's start with worst. All right, Aaron.
Number 3 worst.
Okay, number 3 on each of our worst. Let's flash it up. I have the Duncan Keith deal, and this is going to be controversial. It's down at 3. There were some other bad moves, like the Athanasiou one, for example. Gives up 2 seconds for Athanasiou, and then they lose him for nothing. They don't qualify him, RFA, all of that stuff. I think that one is looked at differently if the pandemic doesn't hit. He loaded up. I think it was a good shot to take on Athanasiou. That's why it's not on my list. What's so bad about the Keith deal, says Owen? It's not the player Duncan Keith was as an Oiler, but to me, it was a microcosm of what some issues with Ken Holland were, and it was process-driven. Duncan Keith had a no-movement clause. He wanted to play in Western Canada. He wanted to win. Seattle was never a fit. Vancouver was never interested in him. He was a bad contract, an aging player, and the Oilers took on the full cap hit. Chicago was a rebuilding team. You look around the NHL right now at what teams have to do to get off of bad contracts, and Duncan Keith was a good Oiler and a good player, and he helped the team. But like Ryan says, my worst Keith helped the team by retiring. Yeah, like the best thing that came of that deal was when we were like, holy shit, thank God he's retiring. So anyways, the Duncan Keith deal for me still, it didn't work out. It's on my list because of the process. You needed to get money retained, and they were cap strapped.
Yeah, I agree with the whole idea of what you just said about why the Keith trade was bad. The only good part about it is the fact that he left, but there was a lot of other positives too, I guess, like the help he gave Evan Bouchard. Like that was a good mentorship to have. He was obviously part of the team that went to the Western Conference Finals. I actually don't have this one on my list, but it would definitely be one of the worst ones. But my number 3, the first round picks.
Okay.
Holland picked 4 players in the first round, and we can all sit here and say, well, Broberg just played well. It's like Broberg wanted a trade, and we were all happy for him to go at the start of the season. Dylan Holloway is yet to put together a full, strong season. I fully believe that's going to happen. Reed Schaefer can't even crack it right now, and I know he was part of a deal, and Xavier Bourgault has been nothing. So I think out of those 4 picks, right now, you can say 1.5 has been good, and I'll give the half to Broberg. But even the Broberg one, too, like the guys who went behind him, guys like Zegras, Spencer Knight, Cam York, Matthew Boldy, like I think we would all prefer those guys on this roster now because they have full-time NHLers who are helping this team. So I know you can put that on the coaching staff, too, and guys like the scouting staff, Tyler Wright being the main culprit, being the director of scouting at that point. But I think the Oilers could have executed better on their first-round picks, which would have helped them during this run, giving them more money. And maybe you don't have to re-sign guys like Evander Kane to the deals you do, or go out and get an Adam Henrique, and you can address something a little bit better. And Henrique was good, don't get me wrong, but I just think those picks could have been better in the moment.
Yeah, I agree with you. I debated putting the Bourgault pick on here, but again, I wanted to, similar to why I didn't put the Athanasiou one, like weird draft year with the pandemic and stuff. There were a ton of bad picks in those drafts. So yeah, that's why I didn't put it on there. My number 2 on the list of worst deals is the timing of some extensions he signed. Signing Darnell Nurse when you did, coming off a season where he had 17 goals in 56 games, shooting percentage was through the roof, the defensive market was spiking. As much as you didn't want to run the risk of bringing him up through unrestricted free agency or bringing him right up to unrestricted free agency, I think the timing of that was obviously poor. If you would have waited 4 or 5 months, his value falls off and you don't get yourself into that deal, right? And same thing with Zach Kassian. If you remember that one, I know some people want to blame pandemic on that. I'm actually not giving that as an out for Ken Holland because, again, you signed Zach Kassian while he was in the middle of a goal-scoring heater. Like, yeah, he's a career bottom sixer. Why did you feel the need to sign him at that point? So I have the Kassian and Nurse extensions as my number 2.
Yeah, the Kassian one was funny. Like, the Nurse one, like, bad idea, but the idea of Nurse being this young up-and-coming defenseman who looked like he was getting better wasn't, like, a crazy thing to anticipate.
No.
But the Kassian one was like, what are we doing here? Like, this is clear and obvious what is going to happen here. But my number 2 is another contract, and it is just the Jack Campbell contract. I think at the time, the Oilers needed a goalie, and it seemed like Campbell, well, he was one of the best options, right? And Darcy Kemper, I think, was the other guy then. But evidently, it's just not worked out. And they're going to have to buy him out. He can start today. A lot of people are talking about that in our chat now. They can start buying out Campbell today if they want to. By the sounds of it, they're trying to make a trade for it. But it's just been terrible, and it's going to handcuff this team now for whatever. What is it? 6 more years? 4 more years? Whatever it is. It's not been good by any means. So the Jack Campbell one is number 2 for me.
I'm fascinated to know what your number 1 is, but my number 1 is the Jack Campbell deal. You committed $25 million to him over 5 years. He gave you 1 shitty season in the NHL, and then that's it. That is all. So, like, Liam, everyone knows the Jack Campbell deal sucks. I think they're going to have to buy him out, but who knows? What's your number 1? What's worse?
Go ahead. I think the Nurse contract is worse. You still have 6 more years of this guy. By no means do I think Darnell Nurse is a bad defenseman. I think on his days, top 4 at best, but unfortunately, most of the time, he's your 5th or 6th guy. And right now, we're putting him in the playoffs. We put him next to our rookie defenseman who was outplaying him and having to, like, make up for Nurse's mistakes. And you're paying this guy so much money. He's got to figure it out. And you cannot move him because he has a no movement clause. It's just, you have no way out of this guy. You've basically just got to play it until he decides to, like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I think that's what makes it just that little bit worse than the Campbell deal.
Yeah, like for me, I'm going to disagree with you on that just because at least you have a player. And while he's not a player that's worth his 9.25, at least there's something contributing to your active roster. And, like, how much is Darnell Nurse truly overpaid by? Is he overpaid by 3 mil, 4 mil, 2 mil? Like, where do you come out kind of on that range versus Campbell is $3.8 million of dead buried cap space. And then the money you got to spend on a new backup. Like, it's basically a $4.5 million cost to you, right? versus if he was just even a competent backup, or like below average backup, and he'd still be on the roster, right? So that's where I'm at with that. At least you're going to have a player in Darnell Nurse, and he's tight with the core, and he's drafted and developed, all of that stuff. So yeah,
I think just on the nursing too, we saw CC get a little bit of chemistry with Kulak, and everyone that seemed to be able to move around and find a partner. Like I did just mention Broberg can play with Nurse, but it still wasn't a perfect pairing. It just seems like the majority of guys who go to Darnell Nurse get slightly worse. And I think that's the CC getting proven isn't a good look for Nurse either. But let's go to actually I had one more negative, which was interesting, that I'll give an honorable mention to. How long it took Holland to get rid of Dave Tippett. That was just something he did not want to do at all. And the team was going absolutely nowhere. We fired him just before Christmas, I think, around that time.
yeah.
Jay Woodcroft comes in, guides the team to the Western Conference Finals. And it's just like everybody knew Tippett was done. And I'm not sure what Holland was waiting for besides the fact he had never fired a coach in season before.
It took so long. Like you look back at that season, the fact it took till February. I saw some people on Twitter saying another negative is how long it took him to fix the Oilers blue line. I don't know about that because, like, again, year one, Cody Ceci was good. After the first year of that contract, we were all kind of sitting there being like, whoa. Like I had low expectations coming in, and it was like, shit, that was all right. Like that's pretty good. And the Duncan Keith deal, like I hate the acquisition cost and how he went about getting him, but Keith came in and gave them solid-ish top 4 minutes, right? So it took him until the Ekholm deal to really say he'd not quite fully fixed the blue line, and Naeem says the blue line's still not fixed. No, it's not, but like it got him to within a game of the Stanley Cup Finals, so you can't hate the blue line all that much. But that ties in nicely to our kind of 3 ups here for the three good things that Ken Holland did. So AB, you can flash up my number 3 on the list of good. I went with the Stuart Skinner contract, man. Like we would be really pissed right now if they had bridged Skinner on some sort of like a 2-year $1.3 million deal, and we're like, we really need to just keep some cap space open here, so let's just go year by year with Skinner. No, they looked at him. He came in, played so well when Jack Campbell faltered, and it was like, screw it, let's keep this guy under contract. And now, like I said yesterday, one of the biggest strengths of this team in their cap picture for the next number of years is that they have a top 15 goalie who I think is going to be a top 10 goalie in the next year for $2.6 million for 2 more seasons. Massive win. So this one's number 3. I think it's clearly number 3. The other 2 are significantly ahead of it, but the Skinner contract deserves to be on the list for me.
Yeah, I think that was a sneaky good piece of business by Holland, especially the way Skinner played in the playoffs once he came back too. But I forgot what my number 3 is, Aaron. Oh yeah, the Nuge contract. I mean, you got this guy locked in. He had 100 points last season. He's just consistently a strong player for you in all situations. We all love Nuge. I don't need to explain much else, but I just think it's a really good deal. And even when it gets to like year 6, 7, 8, whatever it is, I think that'll be fine at 5. What is it? 5, whatever. He's not going to age poorly. So that's a really good deal on my front.
Yep, that's great. Number 2 on my list. I'm very interested to see if we have these in the same order. Ekholm deals 2 for me. Did you have it at 2?
I did not. I had the Hyman deal at 2.
Okay. The Ekholm deal, great. There was some risk involved getting a defenseman that's that age and giving up kind of what you did. One of your top prospects at the time, Reed Schaefer. Again, that's almost a negative, though, that Reed Schaefer was trade bait of that kind of value and not something more valuable that you used a first-round pick for. But you gave up a decent amount to get Matthias Ekholm, but the deal worked so damn well. There was some risk, maybe some process stuff you could talk about, but he saw an impact piece out there that perfectly fit the team. He went out and got him, and they don't make the Stanley Cup final this year if it's not for Matthias Ekholm. So the Ekholm deal I had at number 2. I think the gap between Ekholm and Hyman is small, but you had Hyman at 2 instead of Ekholm.
Yeah, I just think the Hyman deal, it's easier to sign players in free agency than try and acquire players like Ekholm, and we haven't really seen a trade like that in the NHL for quite some time, whether you have the term on the guy, and they've had such an amazing impact on the team. So we can throw it up if you want, Aaron, because we're just the same for the top 4, but I had Ekholm at 1 for that reason of it took a little bit more execution rather than just negotiating with a player and his agent to try and get a guy here. And it did feel like the Hyman wanted to be here really bad as well. Ekholm didn't even know trade clause. He had just signed, or
he didn't have any trade protection, which was the interesting part of that extension.
Well, there you go. And I just think being able to get him has changed. Well, it fixed the blue line in a weird way. Like people who was it naive said the blue line's not fixed. Florida just won the Stanley Cup with Dmitry Kulikov as their sixth defenseman. Like, come on. You're not going to have six perfect defensemen. It's very. I'd love for you to find me a team in the NHL that has six perfect defensemen.
You're bang on with that. Like, it's never going to be perfect. I think maybe the flaw for the Oilers is, like, should they have figured out what they had in Philip Broberg earlier in the season? That's a bit of a chicken and egg debate, right? Like, if you bring him up and he doesn't play all that time in the American League, does he become the defenseman that he is? I think yes. I think if you would have given him the time to sort it out at the NHL level, he would have gotten his game into a decent place. But anyways, I don't think you can argue with either of our threes. I don't even think, though, and maybe this is Nuge, you had Nuge, I had Skinner. 4 good moves. There were other minor good moves in there, but like
Kulak.
Yeah, Kulak is a good move, and the deal they gave Kulak was solid as well. Like I liked bringing him back in free agency. So yeah, Brett Kulak is another one that probably deserves an honorable mention. Is there anything else on the honorable mention front that you liked?
Janmark for $1 million.
Yeah,
I said it there. I said it.
Nothing that really stands out massively at the top of my head. The thing I think, Henrik was a good addition to it. The deadline we could add him. Kane was good in the moment. Then the unfortunate part about Holland was we can say like there was a few deadlines where he just didn't go in as much as he could have. Like you go out and you get Dmitry Kulikov, like stuff like that. It's like probably had a little bit more then, but I think overall it was just to stay with Holland was better than worse, I guess you could say. Like the standards just not very high for what a general manager and success is in Edmonton, right? Like he's probably the best GMs the Oilers have ever had, which is a wild statement to say for a guy who went to one Stanley Cup final in 5 years with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl.
Yeah, the bar wasn't high, and I think that's the interesting part of that kind of statement. And you mentioned the Willis tweet from earlier, so yeah. Anyways, there's our short for giant question. Honestly, like we talked about this so much yesterday, we've known this is coming for so long that I really don't feel like we need to dig into it all that much more. So that's a wrap on our Sherwood Ford giant question. Oh, okay.
His press conferences, the mentions of Detroit, a toilet seat. There was so many great quotes from him that would come out over the years, and I just loved how every time he did it, people would literally tweet like how many times he spoke about his time at Detroit. So I can't wait.
Guide and record book.
Yes, he was a quote machine, and he didn't even mean to be.
It really was something, man. Like his press conferences were. It was just listening to. I don't want this to sound like rude or whatever, but like. It was listening to Grandpa, right? Like half of it was just like endless sentences trailing off in different directions, and I loved it. Tyler Mulick says how bad he was at math.
The best one though was when they got Keith, and he was like, "What did you want me to do? Get him for free?"
It's like, Ken, have you paid an ounce of attention to the rest of the league? Yes. In fact, I didn't want you to get him for free, Ken. I wanted you to get an asset with him in making this deal. Like I wanted you to get paid to bring him in. Was the kind of the whole beef with it? Like. We're not going to get him for free. He's a Hall of Famer. Ken, he's 40 and he's overpaid. Yes, you can absolutely get him for free. God. Anyways, people were saying Perry and Kane signings. Those fell into his lap. I'm not going to give him a ton of credit for those. That's not like good GMing. That's just things popping up out of nowhere for you. So, yeah. Anyways, okay, let's move along, Liam. Let's get to a little around the league report for our friends at Boston Pizza. Here in Canada, summer's short, but the list of reasons to visit a BP's patio are long. Make every occasion a patio occasion at Boston Pizza. Find one near you. Canada's favorite patio destination. Fish bowls, anybody? Huh?
Ooh.
What's your go-to fish bowl, Liam?
I am a rum and Coca-Cola kind of fella.
Rum and Coke. That's a good one. When it's hot out, though, maybe you go for a bit of a lighter pop. I'm a Ryan Ginger guy.
My friend had one the other day that was called a Galaxy, and it was purple, and I'm not sure what it was, but it sounds like you can quite experiment with these things. But a vodka slime is also a nice one to kind of throw in there.
All right. BPs around the NHL report. Yesterday, we got the move. Ilya Mikheyev, Sam Lafferty. It cost the Vancouver Canucks a second-round pick to get rid of those two guys. They got a fourth-round pick coming back in. So they basically moved down 2 rounds. They get rid of the contract of Mikheyev. They throw in the rights to Lafferty as a part of that deal. Interesting. It frees up space. Everyone's sitting here going, all right, they're going to use the space, get Gensel, maybe Zadorov or Zadorov. I don't know how you say that still. But they're going to free up a bunch of space to do one of those two things. And then they go and sign Dakota Joshua to a contract that I will make a bold proclamation. Dakota Joshua gets bought out of that contract before it's over. 2026. Let's do our show on June 27th, 2026. Welcome into Oilers Nation Everyday. Liam, the Vancouver Canucks are putting Dakota Joshua on waivers for the purpose of a buyout. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Also, the Oilers have won back-to-back Stanley Cups. Things are going great.
Yeah, like the first couple of years won't be awful on that. Maybe next season won't be too bad. But I mean, you're looking at a guy that's really had one strong season in the NHL. Like, if I was Vancouver, I would have just allowed somebody else to pay that kind of money for him. But hey, they clearly felt like, I don't even know, he was going to stay what he is, I guess. I just don't see him getting close to 20 goals again.
Nils Jacob, they Cassianed him. Tyler Mulick, it's only 4 years too long. He's still young, yes. He's a good physical bottom 6 guy, but like, if you want to keep a good bottom 6 guy around and you want to give him term, it's got to be term to keep the AAV low. If you're going to pay a bottom 6 guy coming off a career year, don't give him term, make him prove it again. And yeah, like Joshua would have had value on the open market and maybe someone else would have done this, but like, I would never sign deals like this if I was a GM. And I get it's easy to say that from where I'm sitting in all of this, but I don't think it's solid, Daryl. I really don't. Owen, I think Joshua is to them like Janmark or Brown is to us. And Janmark and Brown are going to get hopefully $1.5 million, or hopefully the Oilers walk away.
Yeah, I don't see them making that mistake with those guys. And I mean, Joshua's a good player. Do not get me wrong. Like, he had a good season. He was one of their best players in the playoffs alongside Connor Garland, who they pay $5 million for the next 2 years. Like, it just seems very strange when the whole conversation has been, we need to find guys to play with Elias Pettersson, but they never played Dakota Joshua with Elias Pettersson. And when they did, it didn't even go that well. So I don't know. It seems like if this was like a 2 or 3 year deal, it's like, okay, yeah, I can get that. But the 4th year just seems like that was the only way they were clearly trying to get the AAV down, and he wanted a little bit of security.
But they didn't. 3.25. They didn't get the AAV down.
I know, and they didn't. Well, imagine what they were asking for. I bet he was asking for $4 million.
It's crazy. Could give you a bit of a glimpse into what Warren Fogle could get.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
Yeah. The San Jose Sharks moved down in the draft, so they moved up in the draft. Up. They moved up to 11. It's 14 and 42 for 11. So again, 3 spots cost you a second-round pick. That is pretty significant. Kind of shows maybe where these teams view there's a drop-off and a gap here in the draft. So yeah, anyway, San Jose's moved and shaken. They got Carl Grundstrom from LA as well. Shout out Carl Grundstrom, who once played like 25 seconds in one of the playoff games against the Oilers.
That was crazy. I have a question for you about Jake Wallman. Do we have that trade still, Aaron? Do you mind throwing that up if you got a second? So they basically traded Jake Wallman to San Jose for nothing, right? And they had to throw in a pick.
Yeah.
But would the waivers right now still be that San Jose is the 32nd team? I'm sorry, the first pick in the waiver chart, right?
Yes.
So why didn't they just put him on waivers?
Because San Jose said they wanted a second-round pick to take him.
You don't think they would have just taken him for free, though? Like, if Jake Wallman goes on waivers, surely somebody just picks him up if you're trading him for literally nothing anyway.
I agree with you. I think it was a miscalculation by Steve Yzerman.
I was just thinking about that when I saw these trades kind of going through. It's just like, that doesn't make any sense. Jake Wallman, we spoke about it yesterday, is a good defenseman, and they also traded him to the worst team in the league, who they could have just given him for free rather than a second-round pick. Maybe they just want prospects in this system, and they don't need that second-round pick. Also would be kind of interesting, but I just don't really understand that deal again. But yeah, San Jose, again, what do they get Carl Grundstrom? They're just clearly trying to get players that are playable. Trying to build an NHL roster.
Yeah, I respect it. All right. What are we at for likes? Because we got to get to 200 people. Pick up the pace. Pick up the pace in that YouTube chat. Start hammering that like button. What are we at?
115.
Oof. Might not happen. Streak might be over. Anyways, okay, so that's the news that did happen for our friends at Boston Pizza. Let's get into a rumor roundup, and it's brought to you by a new friend of ours, Liam. It's brought to you by Spring Financial. Unexpected expenses always show up. A new hockey stick, your car breaks down. I love the idea of a new hockey stick breaking and being like, God, these hockey sticks are expensive. Your car breaks down, home needs, any of that stuff. Well, guess what? With Spring Financial, you can borrow money for those unexpected expenses right from your phone and receive an e-transfer within hours. They offer online personal loans from $500 up to $35,000 with no stress and no branch visits ever. Join thousands of happy customers who have made them one of Canada's top-rated lenders. Apply in 3 minutes at springfinancial.ca/ONE. That's springfinancial.ca/ONE. Your rumor roundup, Liam, is Steven Stamkos going to be leaving the Tampa Bay Lightning? We're going to get into that a little bit more with Matt Larkin in a couple of minutes. But what do you make of this talk that he's still unsigned here on June 27th? Do you think they just find a way to get this thing done? Or do you think there's a chance Stammer's playing somewhere else?
I mean, the closer we get, of course, the more likely it is that he moves away from San Jose. And the Ryan McDonough trade just seems so stupid.
It is the dumbest thing they've ever done.
It doesn't make any sense at all unless somehow they can now sign Steven Stamkos for whatever it may be. So the reason why I would still lean towards him going back to San Jose is because how much work they put in last season to try and get Alex Cologne to re-sign. There's no way they don't put that effort into Steven Stamkos, who's their best player ever to play for them, you know? So you got to imagine he ends up back there. But boy, oh boy, they are not making it easy for themselves. Even I'm just looking now on Cap Friendly, which we don't have for much longer, so take full advantage.
Mm-hmm.
5.3 million this season and then 23 million next season, with not too many guys to sign by the looks of it. Victor Hedman, of course, being the biggest one. I wonder if they can get Stamkos on a 1-year deal and then negotiate a new contract with him next season that gives him a bit more money.
Yeah, maybe. All right, that is we have one more rumor to get to, and then we'll get to Larkin. He's going to join me here at the pool. Oh. Liam, we are fully on buyout watch. And I would love the idea of the Oilers maybe finding someone who gets bought out and, weaseling their way in, getting a nice value contract. As someone earlier said, a la Matt Duchene. Yes. Okay, Ryan Suter's probably getting bought out in Dallas. He stinks. Don't touch him. Don't want nothing to do with Ryan Suter. He can go retire. He should retire. Enjoy your money. He's now been bought out by 2 teams at the same time. It's electric. If the Buffalo Sabres buy out Jeff Skinner, I want him to be an Oiler so bad. 24 goals last year. He's made like $100 million in his career. This dude has made $100 million and never played in a Stanley Cup playoff game. He is a prime candidate. You go to this guy, you say, how do you like scoring goals? He says, I love it. How do you want $2 million? Good. Perfect. Slide on in. You're going to play next to Connor or Leon next season. You're going to score 35 goals. You're going to get to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs in a Canadian market. It makes too much sense for him to be an Oiler next year if the Sabres make what I think would be a mistake and buy him out.
Yeah, it would be a mistake, and I would love Jeff Skinner to be an Oiler. And another part of this all, too, the Buffalo Sabres keep moving on from players who go on to win the Stanley Cup. Sam Reinhart, Jack Eichel, Ryan O'Reilly, Kyle Okposo, Linus Ullmark just won a Vezina 2 years ago. It's like, yes, I don't understand why they keep doing this to themselves and just getting rid of these good players. And I would love Jeff Skinner to be an Oiler. I don't know what it's even going to cost. Maybe you can get him on like a Matt Duchene kind of deal where it's just like, no, the weird thing is he doesn't need to prove anything. Mm-hmm. He was at a good year. It's just, he obviously got paid a little bit too much, but I don't know. I would love Jeff Skinner to be an Oiler.
All right. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Double Skinner. What would they do if they got him? Like, they couldn't use the Skinner one on the Jumbotron for both of them, could they?
Skinner and Skinner. Skinner squared.
That would be nuts.
If you have Skinner and Skinner, does one have to have the first initial?
I don't think you have to do that because did the Oilers do that with Patrick and Chris Russell?
Chat, let us know.
Chat, let us know. Chat.
Yeah, chat. Surely
chat. Chat, someone's got to know. Okay, Liam, I'm doing some producing on the fly here, or reorganization of the show on the fly. Do you have a Betway draft bet?
I do, but I don't know how to say the player's name.
Okay, well, that's hilarious, and I really want you to sort that out. How about you? We're going to pull me off. You do the Betway bet. Tell the people why you like it, and then I'll be back with Matt Larkin on the Star Mechanical guest line.
Okay.
Okay, take over for our friends at Betway. $200 free bet when you sign up today. Only available outside of Ontario. How does it work? Place a bet with no minimum amount required, and if your bet loses, you'll get a free bet up to $200 to keep betting on your favorite sports. Scan the QR code on your screen. Liam, take it away.
All right, folks. We're going to try and crack down some names here. Got a bet over on Betway, and they have these ones where you can determine who's going to, it's like a 1v1, we'll call it. Who's going to get picked higher in the draft? There's a bunch of them. I think there's like 10, 12. The one I have gone with, if you know how to say this name, correct me in the chat, put a pronunciation in there. Zane Parquet plus 175 to get picked over Zevi Buyumi. How did that sound?
That sounded. I'm reading these names here. I'll put these names up and we'll see if people can try and figure these out as well.
So the thing is, both these guys are pretty much outside of.
So you're talking number 6 there?
Number 6.
Zane Parrick.
We'll
go with that.
33 goals this season. That is absolutely nuts. Oh, there you go. Tyler Mulick did it. Parek. Zane Parek.
Okay.
That's my Canadian.
Compared to number 8
Number
here.
8. So this is Stephen Ellis's mock draft. But there we go. Owen Poser said it. Parek and Buium. It's so rude of me not to know how to say those names, but I just
Zeev. We'll just call him Zeev.
Yeah, it was a busy morning. The guy from Denver and the guy from Saginaw. They're very close to each other in the draft. I just think the idea of having a guy who could go in the top 5 in Parek plus 175 over a guy that isn't a lock to be a top 5 pick either is a deal I'm not willing to pass up on. So I'm gonna go with that one.
I'm all about the dude. 33 goals, 63 assists.
I mean, come on, that is crazy. That's Evan Bouchard. Like,
just
numbers.
Looking at Utah, just give me a logo, man. That looks so ugly with the rest of those logos around it. The Utah logo.
It's the biggest money grab ever.
Frustrates me.
It's so silly to think that they can just do this. Like the Washington Commanders when they were the former Redskins and they changed it then. That's understandable. Like you're going from a historic franchise trying to figure it out from there, but they didn't. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So it's Zane Parek. Again, I should just stop saying
let me make a poll.
96 points in his rookie year, in his draft year. Sorry, Evan Bouchard had in his draft year 87 points. So he had a bit more than him too. Berkeley can too. I will get into a bit of draft talk. I'm sure we'll have Stephen Ellis on the show probably tomorrow. Berkeley can first overall pick in a WHL draft in his draft class. Amazing player. Going 12th there to Philadelphia. We'll have a bunch of stuff.
You're our company-wide scout. If we're looking for new scouts. You didn't like the first-round draft picks. I know a guy. Didn't you sign someone from the Crew today?
Yeah, we did sign a guy from the Crew today. Came here to Dartmouth.
Ooh.
I know. So a smart boy. I think Tyler's almost ready here. When Tyler's ready, he'll give us a thumbs up. They're zooming in on his camera. And the most intriguing thing about this draft, though, before we get to them and give them a bit more time, TJ Ginla. Like, then Stephen Ellis said this yesterday because the whole rumor is like Calgary need to get him. Like, what are Calgary doing? Why have they not triggered it up? One, TJ Ginla could go anywhere in the top 5, to be honest. Top 4 down is where he's projected. If he falls to Calgary, they will have no choice but to take him because he will be the best player on the board.
Yeah, of course.
So, yeah,
and I'm going to hate him forever from that moment on.
I will too. They're good now. Good? Thank goodness. I was running out of things to say.
Okay, and they're back.
Phew.
Oh, you're muted, Ty.
I can't hear you. Unbelievable.
You hear us? Are we good now?
Did you hear me say the names?
I was listening to you try to say the names. I do think that's what the people want, though, Liam. So it's all good. Okay, Star Mechanical guest line, Edmonton's #1 plumbing and heating company. You can find out more about them online by visiting them at starmechanical.ca. Matt Larkin joins us on the show. Yes, residential, commercial, 24/7 emergency service. They do it all at Star Mechanical. Matt Larkin, managing editor, senior writer, Daily Faceoff. How you enjoying the Vegas heat, Matty?
Oh, I'm loving it. I don't do well with the humidity, but I do great in the dry heat. And Tyler, I got to tell you, I'm rooming with Stephen Ellis. I'm learning all the pronunciations. You want those names? I got them for you.
Zane
Steve Buyum.
Buyum.
Oh, Bouillon, Zeev Bouillon,
Bouillon.
and Zane Perek.
All right, Liam, write it down.
Not even close to what I said.
No, you just a bit outside. It could be a spicy few days around the NHL here, Matt. So I want to go around the horn on a couple of big rumors and things that are happening or not quite happening yet. We touched earlier, Steven Stamkos' future. Do you think there's any shot they don't find a way to get this done?
I think that's absolutely a possibility. And I think if you look at the most recent trade targets board from our buddy Frank Seravalli, it could depend on Tanner Jeannot. So on Monday, he has a no trade that kicks in with 15 or 16 teams, I believe, and that's going to affect where they can move him. And he's a player who has a cap hit of more than $2.6 million, and he has not lived up to it. I think Tampa Bay paid it out because they're trying to justify the 5 draft pick price they paid to get him. Yeah. It's been a disaster of a deal. I think they really need to move him if they're going to make enough room for Steven Stamkos to stay. I think he wants to be a Lightning for life. He wants to be a legacy Lightning player, but also he wants what he's worth, and he's still at least a point-per-game player at this age. And to me, you know where I'm looking? Detroit. Steve Yzerman, his former GM, there's a connection there. We know that the Red Wings just cleared out some cap space with Jake Wallman. They're up to something, very obviously. They're attaching a second-round pick to Wallman. They're clearly just clearing the track, if you will. So, I don't know. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Steven Stamkos is a Tampa Bay Lightning next season.
It would be one of those kind of crazy, weird things. And I know, again, he's still got great hockey to play, but it would give me a little bit of like Modano to the Wing vibes and things like that, where it's like end of the career, guy who you thought would be in one spot forever ends up moving on. But the other rumors, you talked about Frank Seravalli's trade targets list. Let's go to the top and kind of your neck of the woods. You're a Toronto guy. This Mitch Marner thing, listen, it's going to be a messy divorce. I don't think there's a way for them to split and have it be really clean. But what's the path to a deal here? Because like Mitch Marner, it seems like he's fine and his camp's fine being stubborn.
Yeah, I think that both camps are trying to steer things in posture, and I think the smartest move for Marner's camp is to leak out that he wants to stay, because that's going to drive up the quality of offers you're going to get him to waive that NMC. So that could benefit the Leafs as well. In my opinion, I don't agree with anyone saying the Leafs don't have leverage. They do not have to trade Mitch Marner. This is not Matthew Tkachuk. There's no trade demand. If you really have to, you can keep him next year, take your chances, hope that Craig Berube lights a fire under him. I don't know if it's the best path. I think if you find the right deal for Marner, you have to pursue it, because as I said earlier on the Leafs Nation show, Leafs Morning Take, what's the definition of insanity? Can you run it back a 9th year in a row with Mitch Marner? You've had 8 playoff runs. It doesn't matter if there's fear of losing a deal for Mitch Marner. You have to try something different. Yeah. You can't trade Austin Matthews. You can't trade William Nylander. They're under contract. John Tavares isn't going to move the needle and bring in what you need anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. The guy that can bring in a gargantuan return, and I say gargantuan, is Mitch Marner. People think that maybe the Leafs will get lowball offers. This is a player who's 7th in points in the NHL over the last 5 years, and if you're a team that is struggling to just make the playoffs, that's still very attractive. So in my opinion, the Leafs have to wait for the right offer. Obviously, it matters for Marner's camp too. Yeah. There's no guarantee it happens, but I think you still have to look for it, because the best case scenario for all sides is a trade.
It is. And I mean, for Marner, probably a chance to get out of the harsh criticism in a contract year. If you can just, go to whatever market it is where there's not as much pressure, put up 99 points, it's a lot easier for you to head into a negotiation as a 99-point guy without the biggest media market in the league breathing down your neck, calling you a bad defensive player, bad playoff performer, or whatever they want to throw. Also, everyone in the chat, we're getting close to 300 likes. 200 likes. If we get to 200 every day this week, I'll end Friday's show by jumping in the pool. So that's the incentive there. Continuing along with the trade targets board, go back to the top 10 for me, AB. Martin Necas at number 2. There's talk that there are some teams who would maybe be willing to move a pick in the first round tomorrow night for Necas. What teams do you think it makes sense to do that for? Which teams should be willing to make that kind of a splash and make that kind of a payment for Necas?
This is really fun because unlike the Marner situation, we know that Martin Necas wants out. So I think that the Hurricanes are going to be much more amenable to making a move. In that case, I'm really looking at a couple teams. One is the Ottawa Senators. You can make a case they need to use that 7th overall pick because there are so many good defensemen. If, let's say, you draft a Zane Perek, it makes it easier to trade someone like a Jacob Chikrin or Thomas Chabot. But I think that there's urgency there. I think, especially with Brady Tkachuk, just seeing him on the ice, he hasn't even played a friggin' playoff game yet in his career. He's had 6 seasons. You need to move the needle. That's why you traded for Linus Ullmark. You're already kind of indicating you're trying to push things forward. So I really like that possibility. The other team that I think is a sleeper to watch is the Nashville Predators. Barry Trotz is, I think, establishing himself as a fairly aggressive GM. I talked to him earlier this year, and he told me that last year at the draft, he felt like GMs were testing him. He was sort of the fresh blood, and the water was chum. They were trying to lowball him a little bit. I think they know now he's someone to be respected, and I think he could be a player. And if you look at Nashville, to me, they're a much more competitive team than I expected them to be even a year ago. Roman Josi is quietly 34 years old. He's their crown jewel, and you need to take a shot while he still has good years left. And Nashville picking, I think, near the end. I think they're 22 around there, right? Near the end of the first round. Martin Netsch would be a really nice fit there. They need more high-end scorers in that top six.
Liam, anything on that trade targets board stick out to you that you want to ask Matt about?
Nothing on the board. I want to ask you about the Wallman trade. What did you think of the Jake Wallman trade yesterday? It just seemed very strange.
Yeah, I mean, if we use our deductive reasoning, it just doesn't make sense, right? He was someone who, for much of his time in Detroit, was Moritz Seider's primary partner. He had some good moments there. He's a goal-scoring defenseman. He has a cap hit that's north of $3 million. But Detroit has a ton of cap space already, even if you factor in, yes, they have to re-sign Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond. They're still swimming in cap space. So, to me, the deal only makes sense because you're attaching that second-round pick if you have something major planned. And I think that's really exciting just as a hockey fan.
Yeah.
We know that Yzerman is cooking something good. And I think if you look at his tenure, yes, you're a legend in the organization, but you can only have so much runway before the fan base gets impatient. You had a 25-year playoff streak. Now it's an 8-year playoff drought. Everybody talks about Buffalo, 13 years, NHL record. But Detroit, 8 years is quietly a lot. And I think there's mounting pressure, especially after 2 off seasons in a row where Detroit was really aggressive, bringing in lots of veterans. I don't know if I loved a lot of the deals they made, but they're trying to win now. And to me, that's why I think Detroit is the most interesting team to watch in the coming days because it has to be a major move. Otherwise, the deal makes no sense.
Yeah. All right, we got one in the chat for you. It's going to be our Great Clips inbox question for the day. Head to greatclips.com to check things out. They are the official hair salon brand of the NHL, and your time is valuable, which is why they have the Great Clips check-in app. See the wait time, check it on your phone, get your haircut when you want. For more information, check out greatclips.com. Great Clips, it's going to be great. Connor is in and says, what does Matt think of a potential Jeff Skinner buyout?
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm part of the camp that doesn't believe it's a guarantee because if you look at the Buffalo Sabres, what do they need? Veteran scoring. They have so many young prospects, whether it's Zach Benson or Matt Savoy or Isaac Rose and Yuri Kulich, Jack Quinn. It goes on and on and on. There's a lot of redundancy there. You need guys who can help you win now. They want to break through. If you buy out Jeff Skinner, I think Kevin Adams is like, oh, you know who we need? A veteran scorer. Oh, crap. We just bought out Jeff Skinner. So I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. That said, he's interesting if he gets bought out. I really like the idea you were floating, Tyler, about the Oilers. I like that fit. I think Pittsburgh would be an interesting fit just because they are at the top of the denial power rankings. They think they can still compete. They need someone who can score. I know people are going to assume Jeff Skinner, local boy, come back to Toronto. It doesn't make sense. His skill set is not what they need. He's the exact opposite of what they're looking for. So I don't see him coming to Toronto. But either way, he's someone that will have plenty of suitors. He's still a really great skater.
He had 82 points two years ago.
He's the Alex Kovalev of his generation, where you get good, bad, alternating throughout his career. But in the right situation, good Jeff Skinner can be really good.
Yeah. All right. That's our look around the NHL with Matt Larkin. Liam, we do still have one more segment. You can stick around for it, though, Matt. Liam, do you have a Would You Rather for the day?
I do. You told me
right.
I had one.
You are prepared. It is brought to you by our friends at Greta Bar Yeg. The patio rocking. You go inside, you go outside, you play some games, boom, out to the patio, have a beer. The street food is unbelievable. The bar is legit. The arcade is a ton of fun. A summer night out at Greta sounds good to me. Liam, would you rather for our friends at Greta? What do you got?
So obviously the Oilers moved away from Ken Holland as their general manager today, which gives them the opening. So would you rather the next general manager of the Edmonton Oilers be an experienced manager or an up-and-coming GM?
Ooh, fresh blood or someone who's been there before. You know, they've obviously gone with the experience angle the last 2 times. Seravalli, Holland, didn't really work. No rings under Ken Holland and an absolute dumpster fire run by our boy Peter Seravalli. I think, and I would say it's my expectation that it's going to be fresh blood. I think that's going to be the direction. That feels like the vibe Jeff Jackson kind of gives off, is a fresh blood hire, someone who's a bit more forward thinking. What would be your best guess? Because we did hear Jeff Jackson. He spoke to the media today and said he's the acting GM, but he does not want to be the full-time GM, and he wants to get it done before starting Leon Draisaitl negotiations. So, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have this decision. Do you think they'll go young blood or?
It's so funny. Just in the last minute, I kind of went through a roller coaster of emotions, just deciding what my answer is. And I think it's hard because you're thinking short term for a team that was 1 win away. And ideally, an experienced GM is more likely to make win now moves, which you could argue you need. But I think that only works for maybe the next year. I think a more modern thinking GM is going to understand that you need to start restocking the pipeline, because when those cap hits on the next deal for Leon, if he stays, and of course Connor, they're going to be the biggest 2 cap hits in the NHL. I think we probably all agree on that, and they should be. So you're going to really need to start hitting on some ELCs, because your cap structure, even with the cap going up, is going to be a lot more top heavy. And to me, I think, and maybe I'm generalizing too much, but the assumption is a younger GM, someone more forward thinking, is probably going to be better at managing the cap and bringing in a youth movement.
We need 8 more likes in the final 3 minutes of the show, everybody. Come on. You're almost there. Liam, which one would you go with?
I think I would go with a new face and try and modernize your organization a little bit more. If Sean Horkoff be somebody?
He works in player development with the Red Wings.
He's kind of seen as one of those up and coming ish things. It would also be it would be a weird blend of like nice new school kind of fresh hire, classic Oilers, old boys club or whatever.
Yeah, and he's someone who I think is a really smart hockey mind, and he has been instrumental in developing guys like Lucas Raymond. So that's an intriguing pick. Obviously, he has the Oiler history too.
Yeah, that Oilers connection always does exist. Last one, I'll throw your way, Matt. Just when you go back, AB, flash me up the top 10 of the trade targets board one more time here. Winnipeg. Let's wrap this up on maybe a quick Canadian question. Ehlers, McGroarty, a team that obviously wants to contend, though. It's going to be a weird offseason, I think, in Winnipeg.
It really is, especially because, again, we go back to leverage. We know that Nikolai Ehlers wants out. He just couldn't get an opportunity there. He's one of the most efficient players in the league, and I think he deserves a fresh start. I'd love to see him somewhere like Buffalo, especially if you do buy out Jeff Skinner.
Yeah.
I think he could really spread his wings there. But to me, I think this is a perfect trade. I want to pitch it to you guys for Rutger McGroarty.
Okay.
1-for-1 to the Columbus Blue Jackets for David Jiricek. Both guys want to change the scenery. The Jets need help on defense.
Yeah.
Jiricek's a right-handed shot. He has #1 defenseman upside. Rutger McGroarty, Michigan boy. He goes and joins his buddies, Adam Fantilli and Kent Johnson and Gavin Brindley. I think everybody wins in that scenario.
Yeah, and I do think Winnipeg should be trying to get a little younger on the blue line, and they got guys like Perfetti up front, but I know they're still trying to get younger there too. But yeah, I wouldn't have a problem on either side of that deal. All right, Matt, appreciate your time, man. Enjoy the rest of draft week.
It's a pleasure, buddy.
You can read his work at dailyfaceoff.com. Him and Stephen Ellis going to be covering everything going on in draft week, and it's going to be electric. Liam, I hope it stops raining in Edmonton.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's my sister's birthday today, so happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jody.
Well done. Another year complete.
Another year, Jody. Woo! All right. Everybody in the chat, you hit 200 likes. You did your job today. Do it again tomorrow. And I'm ending my week in Vegas in the pool. Big shout out to all of our partners for today's show. Larkin for swinging by. Tomorrow, we are right back, 1 o'clock Mountain Time, getting you set for the NHL draft. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Oil up.
Thank you for watching Oilers Nation Every Day. Hit the subscribe button to never miss a show. And for more, visit Oilersnation.com.